this video, we're looking at Macbeth and we're going to focus on Act 1. So an overview. So in Act 1, Shakespeare introduces Macbeth as a brave and respected hero, but quickly reveals his potential for ambition and moral conflict. The witches plant the idea of power in his mind, and Lady Macbeth strengthens this ambition, ultimately persuading him to consider murdering King Duncan. This act shows the beginning of Macbeth's internal struggle and sets up his tragic downfall. A quick summary. So, the witches appear and establish a dark supernatural atmosphere. Macbeth and Banquo encounter them and hear the prophecies. When Macbeth is named Thane of Cawdor, he begins to believe the prophecy about becoming king. Lady Macbeth reads his letter and immediately plans Duncan's murder. And by the end of the act, Macbeth agrees to kill Duncan. So, key quote 1 is fair is foul and foul is fair. Here, the witches introduce the idea that appearances can be deceptive. The repetition and paradox create confusion, as it suggests that good and evil will be blurred throughout the play. A curated analysis is that Shakespeare uses this to foreshadow Macbeth's moral corruption. What seems fair, which is becoming king, is actually foul because it will involve murder. Key theme is appearance versus reality. Second key quote is stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. Here Macbeth reveals his inner thoughts after hearing the prophecy. Light imagery suggests goodness and morality, whereas darkness represents evil and secrecy. And a great analysis is that Macbeth is already aware that his desires are immoral, yet he does not reject them. This shows that ambition is coming from within, not just from the witches. A key idea of this is that Macbeth consciously chooses to hide his evil intentions, which is the early sign of his responsibility. Key quote 3 is Unsex Me Here, where Lady Macbeth calls on supernatural forces to remove her femininity. This rejects traditional female qualities such as kindness and compassion, and she embraces cruelty and violence. A grade 9 analysis is that Shakespeare presents Lady Macbeth as deliberately rejecting morality in order to gain power, and this reflects how ambition can lead individuals to abandon their humanity. A context link is that this would shock a Jacobean audience due to strict gender roles. Key quote 4 is I have no spur, but only vaulting ambition, and here is where Macbeth admits his motivation. A great analysis is that he recognizes that he has no just reason to kill Duncan. The metaphor of vaulting ambition suggests ambition is uncontrollable and dangerous, likely to lead to failure. The big idea is that Macbeth understands the consequences but still considers the act, which is that tragedy is self-inflicted. A character focus on Macbeth. So in Act 1, Macbeth is presented as conflicted and morally aware. He starts as being heroic, such as the quote, brave Macbeth, and then he experiences temptation, understands right versus wrong, and he chooses to consider evil. A grade 9 insight is that Macbeth is not a typical villain. He is tragic because he is aware of his actions and still proceeds. Key themes in Act 1 are ambition, which is introduced as Macbeth's tragic flaw and is described as dangerous and uncontrollable. Another theme is the supernatural, where the witches create mystery and influence and they represent temptation and chaos. Another one is appearance versus reality, where the witches' language shows deception and Macbeth begins to hide his true intentions, as well as gender roles, where Lady Macbeth challenges traditional expectations and links ambition with rejecting femininity. Why Act 1 matters. So, Act 1 is crucial because it establishes Macbeth's tragic flaw, which is ambition. It introduces key themes and it shows that Macbeth's downfall begins with a thought, not an action. This is where everything starts, psychologically, not physically. A grade 9 interpretation. So, at a deeper level, Shakespeare suggests that evil does not come from external forces alone, but from within the individual. The witches do not force Macbeth to act, they simply awaken desires that already exist. Macbeth's willingness to entertain these thoughts shows that his downfall is the result of his own moral weakness, and this reflects the idea that humans are responsible for their choices, even when influenced by external pressures. Exam style paragraph. How does Shakespeare present Macbeth in Act 1? So in Act 1, Shakespeare presents Macbeth as a conflicted character whose ambition begins to overpower his morality. After hearing the witch's prophecy, Macbeth admits he has black and deep desires, suggesting he is already considering immoral actions. The imagery of darkness reflects his awareness that these thoughts are evil, yet he does not reject them. Furthermore, his acknowledgement that he has no spur but only vaulting admission shows that he recognizes his motives are unjustified. Shakespeare uses this to present Macbeth as a tragic figure whose downfall begins with internal temptation rather than external pressure.